Good morning, students. Today I'll explain the third lesson of your supplementary reader, footprints without feet. Now you see this particular lesson. You see the footprints without feet. This particular lesson is an adaptation of science fiction wrote by H. Wells. You know, the author is here, H. Wells, and actually the name of the original book is The Invisible Man. Now you see, H. Wells is called the father of the science fiction. Okay, his other famous books are The Time Machine. Okay, and you see, The First Man in the Moon. Okay, and another very famous, fiction is The War of the Worlds. You know, most of these books are, you see, also they are made on the basis of the story. Hollywood films are also made. You see here, Invisible Man, the story, in this story, the protagonist, the hero becomes, invisible, got it? And he is a scientist actually, later you know. So in Hollywood films also, the 2000 film The Hollow Man is a movie that is based on The Invisible Man, and we have a recent film, The Invisible Man, you see, based on H. Wells, this particular novel. Well, this particular novel was written in 1897. Okay, and using the basic principles of science, he wrote the stories of the plots of those novels actually. Anyway, you see, here you will find a person who becomes invisible, and the principle H. Wells applies here, that somehow he becomes transparent. Now, what is the meaning of transparent? When light can pass through a substance, that particular substance is called transparent. And you see here, the writer imagines that somehow human body can be made transparent, and in those days, you see, they thought that it is sort of a possibility that you see, transparent like glass. Okay. Now you see, human body is made of different substances. The composition, basically, the bone part is calcium, and most of the body is, you can say, you will find water. Okay, H2O. Anyway, and you see, transparent subject, basically the glass is made of silicon dioxide. Okay, SiO2. Anyway. Still, in those days, in literature, in science fiction, it was supposed that human bodies can somehow be made, transparent, and it becomes transparent. Okay, it becomes invisible because light should reflect from a body. Then it becomes visible. That is the principle actually. That is the reason why, if you say a place, a very big sort of just like a bed, glass slab in the middle of a field, you won't see it. Okay, you will see the glass beyond that particular glass slab, but you won't see the glass slab placed in the middle of that particular field, because light doesn't reflect from a glass slab. Of course, it refracts. Refraction is different phenomena. I think you have, you see that particular formula, Snell's law, in your physics, sin I by sin r is equal to mu. So this is a particular formula that is applied for refraction. Now we are talking about reflection. Reflection means, light has to be reflected, from that particular object. Only then it becomes visible. That is the principle used here. Anyway, let's begin. The title of the story is Footprints Without Feet actually. The two boys started in surprise at the fresh muddy imprints of a pair of bare feet. Bare feet means a feet without any shoes or sandals. Okay, bare feet. What was a barefooted man doing on the steps of a house in the middle of London? And where was the man? Now you see that particular. You see two boys. Suddenly they noticed some of the muddy imprints of a pair of feet, bare feet. See, now so they naturally becomes quite surprised, because in the middle of London, a barefooted person is not supposed to be found, in the middle of the London. And and where was the man? Now they were surprised because they couldn't see any man, but they could see the footprints. Okay, as they gazed, when they were looking at those imprints intently, a remarkable sight met their eyes. Okay, they could see an extraordinary sight. Okay, a fresh footmark appeared from nowhere. Even in front of their eyes, they could see making of the footprints. Okay, but they couldn't see who is the person who is walking. Okay, that's why footprints without feet. Okay, further footprints followed, one after another. So somebody is obviously walking, but they couldn't see who is the person actually. Anyway, one after another, descending, coming down the steps and progressing down the street. Somebody is coming down the step, descending the steps, and he now started walking in the street. The boys followed. Now, out of curiosity, the boys started following him, fascinated until the muddy impression became fainter and fainter. Now you see, fainter here means less distinct. Okay, they were, following the footprints. Of course, there was a man who is walking, but they couldn't see that person. So they thought they were just following that footprints. And at last disappeared altogether. So you see, they could see just the muddy, the mud that is stuck in the foots. And as you see, he walked, the muddy imprints become less and less distinct. So at last, it disappeared. The explanation of the mystery was really very simple enough. The bewildered here means puzzled boys, had been following a scientist who had just discovered how to make the human body transparent. So they were actually following a scientist, a person, a human being, and he was a transparent, sort of as transparent as glass. Okay, that's why they couldn't see him. Okay. And the name of that particular scientist is Griffin. Griffin, the scientist, had carried out experiment after experiment. He conducted, several experiments, and you see, it so happened in initial stage he failed also. Okay, but he was quite, you can say, persistent. That's why he made experiment after experiment, and at last he was successful to prove that human body could become invisible. Okay, so the scientist Griffin at last becomes successful in his endeavor. Finally, he swallowed. So after discovering the drugs, now you see, nowadays corona vaccine, you see, is being developed, and in different phases, clinical trials clinical trials means that vaccine is given to actual, human beings actually. In the first early initial stages, it is applied to animals, guinea pigs, etc., mice, etc. Okay, and later, in later phases, that particular vaccine is applied to human bodies actually, and to see the side effect or the effect, or to see the effectiveness of that particular vaccine. So now you see this particular scientist Griffin, after discovering the drug, he applied to himself. He swallowed the medicine. He was so confident that he was successful. So finally he swallowed certain rare drugs, and his body became as transparent as a sheet of glass, though it also remained as solid as glass. So now you see, he did not lose, his actual shape. He just become, transparent, invisible. Okay, we have three states of matter. We have gaseous state, we have liquid state, we have solid state. You see, even after swallowing the drugs, he remained as solid, okay, as a human, is supposed to be. Anyway, brilliant scientist though he was, Griffin was rather a lawless person. Now you see, one thing is very important here when we discuss the character, analyze the character of Griffin, that he may be a brilliant scientist, but he is not at all good. Okay, when the story progresses, it becomes quite obvious. You see, a person may be brilliant, he may be very intelligent, clever, but it doesn't mean that he must be a good person. Okay, being a brilliant person, a very intelligent person, doesn't guarantee that he is also a good person. So that is the case actually. Griffin is a brilliant scientist, but he is in no way can be called a good person. Okay, his landlord disliked him and tried to eject him. Okay, he was staying in a rented house, and his somehow the relationship between him and his landlord is not cordial, so he wanted to eject him. Okay, send him away from his home, from his house, in revenge. Okay, now you see, he was quite, you can say, revengeful sort of. So after discovering the drug, that particular substance that made him invisible, what did he do? In revenge, Griffin set fire to the house. Now that is the first act he did after becoming invisible. So he cannot be called a good person. He's a lawless person sort of. Okay, he is, you can say, against the interest. What he did is against the interest of the society. Okay, so what he did, he set fire the very house where he had been living. To get away without being seen, he had to remove his clothes. Now you see, only his body remains, invisible when he swallowed the drugs. But you see, he could be easily spotted if he keeps wearing his clothes. That's why he had to remove his clothes. Okay, so you can say, to be completely invisible, he had to be completely naked. Okay, that was the condition actually. To get away without being seen, he had to remove his clothes. Thus, it was that he became a homeless wanderer. So since he himself set fire his rented house, so now he becomes homeless. He started wandering without clothes. Now you see, he can't afford to wear clothes. If he wants to be invisible. remain invisible, okay, without money and quite invisible, until he happened to step in some mud and left footprints as he walked. So he happened to step in some mud, and the mud struck his feet, and that's why when he went, wherever he went, he made footprints mud, okay, and that footprints, muddy footprints, were seen by those boys actually. He escaped easily since he is invisible. There is no question of being captured, okay, because nobody can see him. He escaped easily from the boys who followed the footprints in London, but his adventures were by no means over. He had chosen a bad time of the year to wander about London without clothes. It was midwinter. The air was bitterly cold, and he couldn't do without clothes. Now you see, instead of walking about the streets, he decided to slip into a big London store for one. Now you see, in London, in Western countries, in Europe, even in USA, winter is, is without clothes. You can't even imagine that you will survive an European or an US winter. Okay, sometimes the temperature is much below the 0 degree temperature. Okay, it's minus 15, minus 20. Sometimes in Russia you can find in some places the temperature is Vargoyenos, for example, the coldest place in the world. In Canada also, the temperature is in winter is always minus 0 degree centigrade. So to survive that bitter, cold, you have to have enough clothes to wear. Okay. Now here this person, he is working without any clothes. Okay. Virtually you can say literally he is working naked. So he is feeling the cold. Okay. So the air was bitterly cold and he couldn't do without clothes. That's why he decided to step inside a big, departmental store sort of. Okay, just like Big Bazaar. Okay, a very big, departmental store, so that he can find some warmth. Okay, closing time arrived. He was waiting there. Okay, and as soon as the doors were shut, Griffin was able to give himself the pleasure of clothing. So he was inside, the departmental store without being noticed. Okay, and so after the closure, everyone went home. The employees of that particular, departmental store. After closing the store, they went home. Now he was inside alone. Okay. So pleasure of clothing and feeding himself without regard to expense. So nobody can see him, and he was alone there, and that's why he ate as much as he could. Okay, and he don't even, he is without money actually. So now since he was alone, nobody can see him. So there is no question of paying for whatever he eat. Okay, expenses. He broke open boxes and wrappers and fitted himself out with warm clothes. Okay, now that particular departmental store has clothes also. So he now wore clothes. Okay, from that departmental store. Soon, with shoes and overcoat and wide brimmed hat. Okay, he became a fully dressed, visible person. Okay, the dress, the clothes he is wearing, they can be that. Okay, that can be visible. So he got a human shape, you can say, visible person. In the kitchen of the restaurant, he found cold meat and coffee, and he followed up the meal with sweets and wine taken from the grocery store. So now he fed himself completely, fully. Okay, he is no longer hungry. Finally, he settled down to sleep on a pile of keys. Okay, now he started okay, he decided to sleep. Okay, if only Griffin had managed to wake up in good time, all might have been well. As it was, he didn't wake up until the assistants were already arriving next morning. Okay, so he slept till the assistants, okay, the employees of that particular store, they started arriving. When he saw a couple of them approaching, he panicked. Panic means became frightened and began to run. Now, you see another thing. He may become, maybe he's now invisible, but it doesn't mean that he cannot feel pain, hunger, cold, etc. Okay, you see, he is still vulnerable to the elements of nature. Okay, now his body is still a human body. Okay, of course it may be invisible. So if somebody beat him, if somebody punch him, he will feel the pain. Okay, that's why when he saw that some of the assistants of that particular store is approaching, he got panicked, okay, and began to run. Then naturally says, okay, those assistants, okay, they could see those clothes, okay, they may be, they couldn't see the person, actually, the face, but they could see the clothes, okay, and it made a very distinct human shape. So they were seizing him, okay. Gabe says, in the end, he was able to escape only by quickly taking off his newly found clothes. So in order to escape from that crowd, those seizing assistants, he had to remove his clothes that he picked up from that particular department store, one by one. Okay. So once more he found himself invisible but naked in the still January air. So again he had to become naked in order to become invisible. And in that bitter, silly, you see, January, okay, air, it becomes quite, remaining with a bare body is quite, you can say it is quite painful. This time he decided to try the stock of a theatrical company. Okay, you see, in theatrical company, in the go down of a theatrical company, you will find different materials so that you can disguise yourself, okay, beard, etc., all those things. So in hope of finding not only clothes but also something that would hide the empty space above his shoulder. Now you see, he had empty space, okay, his neck is empty, his face is empty, even if you wear shirts, coat, trouser, shoes, hat, but still his face remains empty, remains invisible. That's why so he wanted to find something that would hide the empty space above his shoulder. Okay, shivering with cold, he hurried to Drury Lane, the center of the theater world. Okay, Drury Lane. He now decided to go to a particular street that is called Drury Lane. He soon found a suitable shop. He made his way invisible upstairs and came out a little later wearing bandages around his forehead. You see, he wrapped himself in bandages, forehead, dark glasses. So now you see his eyes are also not visible. That's why he is wearing that particular glass. Wearing dark glasses, false nose, big bushy side whiskers, and a large hat. Okay, so he is wearing all those things. He's wearing colored glass, dark glass, a false nose, whiskers, beard sort of, and you see he's wearing bandages around his forehead. Okay, So he somehow got himself a human shape. Okay, otherwise he was quite invisible. Okay, empty. That space was quite empty. So to escape without being seen, okay, he callously, okay, when you were committing something wrong, actually, that is called callously attacked the shopkeeper from behind. Okay, from behind he attacked the shopkeeper, after which he robbed him of all the money he could find. So now you see, what he did first time, just after being invisible, okay, he set his own rented house on fire. Okay, he still you see, food and clothes from the departmental store. Now he again steal all those things from that the godown of the theater company, and also another crime he committed, he robbed the shopkeeper. Okay, eager to get away from crowded London. Now he thought that it becomes quite difficult for him to survive in the London, in a crowded metropolitan city like London. So he decided to go somewhere that is isolated. Okay, so eager to get away from the crowded London, he took a train to the village of Iping. Okay, where he booked 2 rooms at the local inn. Now he, you see, he thought that in a crowded place, okay, his existence will be easily discovered. Somebody somewhere will catch him doing something illegal. That's why he thought that he needs some isolation. So he wanted some isolated place. Okay, so he won't have, so other people won't interfere. Okay, in his work. Anyway, so he took a train, local train, and he went to a village, and the name of that village is Iping. Okay, now he booked 2 rooms in the local inn. Inn is a hotel, actually, a small hotel. Okay, the arrival of a stranger at an inn in winter. Now that is not a season for tourists, actually. The tourists generally avoid winter season, actually. Got it? So this is not the season, actually. The arrival of a stranger at an inn in winter was, in any case, an unusual event. Okay, generally the innkeepers, they don't expect tourists in that particular season. Anyway, a stranger of such uncommon appearance, so he is wearing all those things. He looks like someone who is just walked away from a morgue, sort of, got it? Because he has all those bandages, or you can say he is walking a person after post-mortem. If somebody walks in the street, okay, he looks like that. The arrival of a stranger at an inn in winter was, in any case, an unusual event. A stranger of such uncommon appearance, okay, set all traveling. Everybody, okay, becomes surprised to see a person with such appearances, okay, with such clothes, all those bandages. Mr. and Mrs. Hall, the landlord's wife, she is the wife of the innkeeper, made every effort to be friendly. Okay, she wanted, out of curiosity, wanted to know something about the invisible man. So she tried to become friendly, but Griffin had no desire to talk and told her, "My reason for coming to Iping is a desire for solitude." Okay, she bluntly, at her face, she told her, when she tried to become friendly, okay, that I want solitude. Okay, it's not that I don't want to talk with anybody. I don't want company. Okay, my reason for coming to Iping is a desire for solitude. I do not wish to be disturbed in my work. So he told her very flatly, directly, that I don't want to talk with anybody. I don't need, company. Okay. Besides, an accident has affected my face. So as an explanation, he told that because everybody is naturally anxious to know why she is wearing that bandage. Okay. So he gave that explanation that he had an accident. That's why he had to wear all those bandages. Satisfied that her guest was an eccentric sort of scientist, okay, of unusual character, okay, eccentric scientist, and scientists are supposed to be eccentric. In those days, that was a common belief that scientists are generally they are eccentric, okay. So that's why Mrs. Hall, she just leave her effort to become friendly with the invisible man. So anyway, in view of the fact that he had paid her in advance, Mrs. Hall was prepared to excuse his strange habits and irritable temper. And you see, Griffin paid her in advance. So Mrs. Hall don't have to worry about money. So she decided to, let Griffin do as he liked. Okay, but the stolen money did not last long. You see, the money that Griffin had was the money that he robbed from the shopkeeper in Drury Lane. So it didn't last long actually. And presently, Griffin had to admit that he had no more ready cash. Okay, he had spent whatever he had. He pretended, however, that he was expecting a check to arrive at any moment. So when the next, date of payment was due, he just told Mrs. Hall that he had no ready cash at that time, and he was expecting a check. Okay, that was a false lie actually. Shortly afterwards, a curious episode occurred. Very early in the morning, a clergyman is the priest in the local church, clergyman and his wife were awakened by noises in the study. Okay, creeping downstairs, they heard the sink of money being taken from the clergyman's desk. So study is the place where you keep your books, sort of a private library. The clergyman and his wife were, you see, they were sleeping in the first floor, and in the downstairs, in the ground floor, they heard, somebody, a sound sort of. Okay, without making any noise, they wanted to see who is there. Okay, without making any noise, and with the poker is sort of a, you can say an iron rod. Okay, that is used to stir the fire actually. Poker, grasped firmly in his hand, the clergyman flung open the door. Abruptly opened the door violently. Surrender. Okay, he thought somebody must be there inside because he had heard the sink of money, being taken. Okay, heard, a sound from inside the room. So that's why when he opened the door, okay, he threatened with the poker and called surrender. Then, to his amazement, he realized that the room appeared to be empty. Okay, nobody was there. Appeared to be empty. He and his wife looked under the desk and behind the curtains. Okay, and even after seeing, okay, there wasn't a sign of anybody. Yet the desk had been opened and the housekeeping money was missing. Housekeeping money is the money that is generally kept in home for day-to-day expenditure, that is called housekeeping money. Extraordinary affair. clergyman kept saying for the rest of the day. Okay, so far we learned that a scientist whose name was Griffin could discover a drug that can make himself invisible. But Griffin, he may be a brilliant scientist, but he is not at all a good person. In revenge, you see, his relationship with his landlord is not cordial. So what he did after becoming invisible, the first thing he did is to set his rented home on fire. So it itself is a heinous sort of crime. Then afterwards, he wanted to escape from there, and so in order to become invisible, he made himself completely naked. He's walking, and he's feeling cold actually. Okay, because it was January. It was in the month of January, and in that particular season, okay, winter season, the temperature is quite low actually. Okay, you can't even imagine to survive without sufficient clothes. That's why he went inside a department store. He was hungry also, so he fed himself, and he wear warm clothes from the store. He was sleeping since he was tired, but he was sleeping. He slept a little late actually. That's why till he awake, the assistants of the department store started coming, and he had to flee from that place. And of course, the assistants they tried to seize him, but he removed his clothes one by one. Okay, and he became invisible. Then he decided to put a disguise, okay, so that he can live like a normal human being. So he went to Drury Lane and got in a shop where materials for theatre, all those things are sold. He took black glass, a hat sort of. He wrapped his face in bandage, okay, and he now becomes sort of a visible man. And while coming out from that shop, he also robbed a shopkeeper in the Drury Lane, and he fled from there. And in order to escape from the crowd in a metropolitan city like London, he decided to go somewhere that is lonely, isolated. Okay, so he took a train and went to a village called Iping, where he booked 2 rooms for himself in a local inn. The innkeeper's wife, Mrs. Hall, tried to become friendly with him, but very bluntly, directly told her that he doesn't need any company, he doesn't want to talk with anybody else, and he wanted to keep, you can say, himself isolated from other people of that particular village. And here, as an explanation of his curious sort of appearance, he told them that he had an accident. Okay, and he had some money. Since he had robbed that particular shopkeeper, he paid in advance. So for someday, he don't have to pay anything. That's why initially Mrs. Hall, who is the wife of the innkeeper, she allowed him to take, to live the way he liked. Okay, and since after some day, since he had no more cash, he had to lie to the innkeeper. Okay, he told them that he is expecting a check, to arrive. After that, he can pay them. Okay, the remaining dues. Okay, and he also robbed the local clergyman. Of course, they heard somebody is doing something inside their room, inside their study. and they could see nothing because he is invisible. Of course, they found that the housekeeping money that is kept in the drawer is missing. Okay, okay. You see that much for this class. Okay, the remaining portion of the story will explain. I'll explain in the next session. Okay, thank you.